Hello, gorgeous, and welcome to the Midlife Realignment. I'm your host, Esther Blum, and I'm here to disrupt the narrative on perimenopause and menopause with humor, nutrition, hormones, and fierce self-advocacy. Together, we'll rewrite your story and the rules because there's a light at the end of the vaginal tunnel. Let's go. Welcome to the Midlife Realignment Podcast. It's me, your host, Esther Blum. I'm bringing you a solo episode today. I put out a query on Instagram as to what I should talk about. And one of my dear friends from high school was like, you've got to talk about your hysterectomy experience. And I realized, hey, I never talked about that. And it's something I really do want to talk about. So we're going to be covering that today. And in the meantime, when this drops, it's going to be right dead center of Hanukkah and Christmas and the two holidays intersecting. So just a gentle reminder for self-care. I know I talk about it a lot and it's like, yeah, self-care. Okay, stress management. Okay, yeah, I'm supposed to get my workouts in. All right, Here's how I get through the holidays in a very real way. That supports my body and most importantly supports my mental health, because when we are with family or sometimes when we're with friends, it can feel really stressful. It's really busy. We get knocked out of our habitual rituals. And so I just want to share with you what keeps me personally grounded. I've honed this routine over the years to the point where it's just my daily. And I allow myself to not be perfect, but I really strive to be 80% when we're traveling. So number one is getting outside. I eat breakfast. I don't work out fasted. That tends to drop my sugar too low because I have very low sugar to begin with and low insulin. But I absolutely get up in the morning and get my face in the sun. And this is very easy when we visit family in Florida. That's a no-brainer. We do a 4-mile walk on the beach in the morning. We're in Siesta Key. So that's very easy. But this year, we're also going to New Hampshire to be with my bestie and her fam, and it's freaking freezing up there. So I have bar method classes online that require a whopping, a rubber band and maybe a small ball that I use between my thighs during squats and whatnot. So I can easily pack that. And my husband uses the Peloton app and he'll do body weight exercises. He'll do shadow boxing. In Florida, we have access to a gym, so that's super easy. You can do strength training there. But it's just the routine and the habit of walking in the morning and doing strength training in the afternoon. It doesn't have to be long, even if your workouts are shorter. If they're 20 minutes, that's totally fine. But I think the important thing is to just be consistent with a workout, because you just set the tone for the day. And you know that if you're going to indulge, you will, just having that red string around your finger of having worked out and having a marker for success already set up for the day is a reminder that you've already had a win for the day. And it just helps you stay focused throughout the day. Okay. The next thing is alcohol. You've heard me probably talk about this a million times on social media, or if you're on my mailing list, I write about alcohol all the time, I should say. And I've really reassessed my relationship with alcohol and stress management, because alcohol has really not been a friend to me over the years. And especially after the hysterectomy, it is like my body is pissed when I have alcohol. So sometimes it's a bummer because I do appreciate just like how relaxed I feel when I do have a drink. It does take my stress down, but it wrecks my sleep. I just lie awake for an hour or two every night I have a drink. So I kind of have given myself permission to I love Aperol spritzes. I've been drinking them since our trip to Italy last year. So I will make a picture of Aperol spritzes for everyone. And I will have one Aperol spritz. I had one on Thanksgiving. I will have one on Christmas Eve. But that's it. The rest of the time I drink Fever Tree seltzers. I love anything sparkling. I love. And it has taught me to just be present in the moment and not actually want to numb myself or, practicing other ways to relax. And I notice putting away my cell phone is hugely relaxing, like dialing out the news and just really being present. And I actually bought a couple of games to bring on vacation. One is called Drawing Without Dignity. It's probably like a lot of dick drawings and a lot of like really funny drawings. It's probably like Cards Against Humanity, but with a drawing game. And then I bought another game called and it's a card game, and it's asking you all sorts of prompting questions to kind of let people get to know each other better. So I'm just bringing those two games. We'll see how they go over. And then eating wise, I really let myself eat whatever I want because my portions are so regulated. I think I have a lot of good natural GLP-1s in my body. I really, I stop eating when I'm full or uncomfortable because those workouts keep me really grounded and reminding myself that, I don't have to like overindulge. I'm not missing out. I let myself taste everything. I was at a birthday party last night. There was a gorgeous chocolate cake. I took like a couple bites and I was like, this is more than enough. I don't like the sugar and how it feels in my body. So I've gotten really careful about that over the years and just being really present, filling up my plate with protein throughout the day, all the things that we talk about. So just a reminder to give yourself permission to step away from everybody for 20 minutes, to put your face in the sun, to have a minute of quiet to yourself, and to really self-care. Yoga also, I do love yoga. You could do it on YouTube. You could do it on Peloton app. That's the other thing is really centering your routines around your stress management because it can get really intense. Kids are home from college. There's all the gifts. There's all the hosting, all the cooking. And then you have family interactions on top of that, which can really trigger stress. So just remember, the only person who can trigger you is actually you. Our triggers are responses. When we get triggered, we're actually responding to ourselves. So it's talking yourself through, anticipating how you're going to keep your peace for the day, doing some deep breathing, taking a step outside if you need a breather, just giving yourself permission to just be and listening to your inner heart and listening to your body, checking in with yourself. Am I stressed? Am I not? If I'm really anxious, what do I need right now? It's probably not another cocktail. It's probably, time outside in just quiet where you can really think or talk. Okay. So switching gears, I do want to talk about my hysterectomy experience because it was actually really incredible. And hold on a second. Get my phone because I really want to talk to you about how I pre-gamed for the surgery, which to me is equally as important as the recovery itself. Now, it's very interesting. My GYN, Suzanne Fensky, who is the freaking best, she's in New York City. She's functional medicine. And the reason why I even had the hysterectomy is because I had been having the most wickedly insane labor-like cramps 3 to 4 times a week. I was getting migraines. I spent my whole birthday with the most wicked migraine, throwing up, like a terrible, terrible time. And I was so inflamed and puffy. And she thought, and I had 8 fibroids. Now, the fibroids were all on the right side of my uterus. They were pressing on my bladder. One was the size of a kiwi, one was the size of a golf ball. But my left side was where I was getting all the cramps, and I didn't have fibroids there. And years ago, prior to Thanksgiving, it was the night before Thanksgiving, I was hosting 15 people, and I felt like I ruptured a cyst, like I was crying. The pain was so extraordinary. And I went to my conventional GYN, right, locally, because Dr. Fensky does all my hormones, but she's also my very good friend. So I'm not having her face down in my vag, okay? So I go to a regular GYN for that. So I go to the regular GYN, and I said, I'm pretty sure I ruptured a cyst. And they said, oh, well, we're going to rule you out for chlamydia. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? How insulting. Number one, I work at home all day. My producer, Brian, is laughing because, like, it's so fucking egregious. I work at home all day with my husband. I'm not whoring it up on my streets, the town where I live. And, like, why would you assume that I had chlamydia instead of giving me a sonogram for ruptured cyst. So that pain had been ratcheting up in the later stages of perimenopause. And so after I had my imaging done and we saw all those fibroids, I called Suze and I said, what the hell? Like, what are my treatment options? And she said, well, you can have the fibroids drained and you can have surgery, but it could be 20% effective, it could be 80% effective, and they could grow back. And I was like, well, that really sucks. And I also asked her, did I do this to myself? Because I'm a big believer, as you know, of early intervention HRT. The research supports it, and I felt so much better. And she said, absolutely not. Like, women get this all the time in perimenopause because your hormones are a ridiculous roller coaster. And when your estrogen is surging, it will continue to feed those fibroids. HRT is so extraordinarily low dose that it's far less of an issue. And my mother had a hysterectomy when she was 49. She had a fibroid the size of a grapefruit, and she wasn't on any HRT at all. So it's not, it wasn't the hormones that did it. It was just my body. So she said, you could also have a hysterectomy where we just take out your uterus and fallopian tubes, but you leave in the cervix and you leave in the ovaries. Now, why do you want to leave in the cervix? Well, the cervix really supports the pelvic floor. So I was like, good idea. I don't like taking things out. I really had no interest. But we talked through all the possible treatments, and the hysterectomy made the most sense. And it's laparoscopic robotic, so minimally invasive. And you're sent home the same day, which is the craziest part. So she sent me to the surgeon who trained her, Dr. Valentin Kolev. And he happened to have moved up from Mount Sinai in New York to Yale, which is not far from me in Connecticut. So I went and met with him. And first of all, so I had my long list of questions that I do want to go through with you. Okay, so when I went in for the pre-op consultation, I made him a list of questions. And to his credit, he was so relaxed. He was just kind of leaning back against the counter, just hanging out, and was like, what questions do you have for me? And so I went through and asked him, I was super sensitive to medications. I don't detox medications terrifically well, and I get very motion sick. So I said, I'm guessing I'm going to be super sensitive to anesthesia. Can you give me an anti-nausea patch behind the ear, which they did? Can I talk to the anesthesiologist? And could I get the lowest possible dose that would knock me out, but not make it impossible for me to detox? Because Percocet, I was given Percocet after childbirth and was puking my guts up, which is not fun when you've had an episiotomy and stitches. So Percocet racked me. So I was like, nothing like that. I wanted to make sure. Now, I didn't know at the time if I had endometriosis. I didn't know if I had adenomyosis, which, spoiler alert, I had adenomyosis. So I wanted to make sure that I got insurance coverage because not all anesthesia is covered. Depending on what state you're in, it can only be covered in 15-minute increments. So lucky for me, I'm in Connecticut, so there was no issue, but like New York can be very different with that. So that's a question you want to ask your doctor. I wanted to make sure that he also looked for endometriosis. Now, Dr. Kolev specializes in really complex surgeries with cancer, but I said, do you work a lot with endometriosis? He said, if it's there, I'm going to make sure I'm going to explore and get out. I didn't know if it was on my bowel. I didn't know if it was in my pelvic region, my abdominal region. So I was like, make sure you look for it. And thank God I did not have endometriosis. And then the interesting thing was this. Now, Dr. Kolev wanted to take my cervix out because he is an oncology surgeon. So he said, of course, I'm going to want to take it out because I don't want you to ever have the risk that you are going to get cancer. For me, one of my biggest symptoms of menopause have been genitourinary. I have to pee a lot. I have bladder urgency. My pelvic floor is really tight. I wear an Est ring, which is a ring that dispenses vaginal estrogen 24/7, and that actually supports my bladder. So I advocated to keep my cervix, which I was really excited about. And Dr. Fensky did too. She said, nope, keep your cervix. So if you can, ladies, keep your cervix because it's an easier recovery for you. And yes, you still do have to get pap smears with a cervix. You should know that. But for me, again, I like to be minimally invasive. I asked him about the potential length of the surgery, which he said would be about 2 hours, give or take, assuming nothing was wrong. He didn't have a lot of endometriosis. And I also asked the risk of bladder prolapse and incontinence, which he said it's possible, but usually that stuff is down the line. That's not immediate. And I asked also, like, what would my activities of daily living be? We call those ADLs. What could I do the days after the surgery? And this was my favorite part. He said, the more active you are, the better your recovery will be. The sooner you can be active, the better your recovery will be. So I'm very active, but I made sure prior to the surgery, I really pre-gamed this summer. I got my mileage up walking. I'm still doing strength training. So that was very beneficial to my recovery. We were supposed to travel and do a very active vacation about 6 weeks after the surgery. So we changed our plans. He was like, nope, 4 to 6 weeks. You should not be doing anything super strenuous. You can't lift anything heavy. My husband and I, we were going to do like 8-hour hikes. And he was like, not this round. You better hold off on that. I asked him the follow-up process after surgery, which was visit with him, exams with his team. And I was reading online also that so many women who had a hysterectomy were so swollen for months and months after surgery. And he was like, don't worry about that. That's not going to be you at all. But he said it was a very low percentage of women. But for all of you out there experiencing this, I see you. I feel very lucky. I did not have that, but I'm going to give you tips on how to get the inflammation down. And then I asked him, what was I not asking that I should know? So I also said, how many nights am I going to be in the hospital? And he said, none. You're going to be same day procedure. And so, so my husband was there. He said, well, how about me? Can I stay in the hospital? And Dr. Kohler just looked at him. And then I said, well, what about sex? Like, when can I resume sex? He said, 6 weeks after surgery. So my husband, Jeremy, looks at him and said, well, what about me? When can I still have sex? And he just looked at him. And Dr. Kohler is Georgian. And he just said, if you must. And that it was very funny. I was like, okay, Jeremy, you're hilarious. Are you slogging your way through perimenopause? Do you feel like the dead lady in the bathtub in The Shining? I'm Esther Blum, integrative dietitian, best-selling author, and menopause survivor. With 30 years of helping women make menopause their bitch, I've created an elite program to help you reclaim midlife and get your life back with personalized hormone tests, gut healing protocols, custom supplements, and coaching with me. You'll reset your sleep, banish bloating, crush your workouts, and reignite that sexy spark, all in a badass community of women like you. Visit estherblum.com/elite to learn more. Anyway, so I pre-gamed with anti-inflammatories. Now, I had to be careful what I could take. I couldn't take any blood thinners. You can't take garlic, you can't take fish oils or anything, vitamin E 2 weeks before surgery. But what I did do was load up with CoQ10. I loaded up on turmeric and I loaded up on boswellia. All of those are incredible anti-inflammatories. And I took some before, but post-op, I took 400 milligrams a day of CoQ10. Why? Because so many women in midlife, you have so much fatigue and exhaustion, and CoQ10 does incredible things for the mitochondria. The mitochondria in our cells, it's like the nightclub that stays open all night long. and it is the powerhouse of your cell. So the more muscle you have, the more mitochondria you have. The more mitochondria you have, the more energy you have. So you better believe I was drenched in CoQ10 and I took a lot of turmeric and boswellia, which are incredible anti-inflammatories. So the day of surgery, it was fascinating. You are not allowed, you can eat a few. My surgery was scheduled for 11 a.m. and they said drink a ton of electrolytes, which I did, and eat a light breakfast, which I did, which I was like, are you sure? Am I going to puke that up? And they said, no, it actually helps recovery. So I was really surprised about that. And then when I got to the hospital, they gave me this incredible paper gown and plugged in a hose that warmed it. And they said, I said, this is amazing. Why do you do this? And they said, because we have better recovery rates when you lower your risk of hypothermia, because the operating room is pretty cold. So I was super toasty. So Jeremy's next to me in the OR. The nurse is coming to check me in. And of course, he's like feeding me funny lines. He's like, ask if there's going to be a movie before this flight. So I asked the nurse, we were totally joking around. She laughed. Then Dr. Koloff comes in and says, how are you feeling? I was like, well, I'm kind of nervous because I had not been under general anesthesia since I was 6 years old, and my grandfather took out my tonsils. Rewind to episode 1 where I talk about that story. So obviously I was nervous, but so of course I start joking and I was like, listen, Dr. Koloff, what do you say? We make this into a spa day. And like, while I'm knocked out, you give me a boob job, you give me a tummy tuck. And of course, he's just so, he's very professional. He crosses his arms and he's like, no. So I did not get my boob job and tummy tuck. So, but the staff was so nice. And the cool part is that I had been in so much pain. The surgical fellow said to me, believe it or not, your recovery is going to be so much easier than what you were living with day to day. And she was so right. So I'll come back to that. So they wheel me to the OR, and it was like 11:45. I get wheeled into the OR. I lifted myself onto the table, which I just thought was so interesting. And immediately there's just a team around me, right? There's people putting compression braces around my legs. The anesthesiologist was behind my left ear and he was like patching me up. And he said, there's 5 centers of your brain where nausea can affect you. I'm going to block all 5 of those. I was like, hallelujah. And the surgical fellow was so sweet. She literally like grabbed my right hand and was just rubbing my arm. And I was like, thank you, because again, it's really nerve-wracking for me, for anyone to go under general. So she was so sweet. They put an oxygen mask on me. And again, I like to joke when I'm nervous. And my son Ben was a vanishing twin, which is when your body resorbs. Originally, when I was pregnant, there were 2 sacs and 2 embryos. Now, Ben's embryo was normal size. The second embryo was very tiny. And then the second sonogram, there were 2 sacs and 1 embryo. And then the third sonogram, there was just 1 sac and 1 embryo. So I am very dark humored. And I said, listen, so I'm on the OR on the table. And I said, listen, my son was a vanishing twin. So if you find the second one in there when you go and let me know. And then they must have knocked me out because they were like, get this girl under. So the next thing I remember, I woke up, I had a nurse's voice in my ear, and she was like, Esther, it's time to wake up. Are you hungry? Well, of course I'm like a nice Jewish girl. Of course I love to eat. So I was like, yes. She goes, you want some cinnamon raisin toast with butter? I'm like, yes. So I ate. And it's so funny. So she had me try and pee, which I was able to do, which after anesthesia, you're not leaving the hospital until you can pee because they catheterize you during the surgery. So I was able to pee, which thank God, right? Thank God I was able to do that. So they said, great, you can get dressed now and go to the hospital, to go home from the hospital. So I look down and I see that I'm in a completely different gown and socks that I was not in the OR. So it dawns on me, I'm like, oh my God, everyone in the OR saw this whole body here naked. Great. Thank you. Glad, everything was neat and tidy and manicured down there because everyone saw it. So I just chuckled. I was like, okay. So I get dressed. I'm still pretty loopy. Apparently, they had given me some codeine or something orally, they had me take a pill. I just thought it was a Tylenol. So I was extraordinarily nauseous on the ride home, but still had the patch. And so I get home, I get upstairs, I pass out on the couch. I had my husband bring me a trash can because I was like, am I going to puke right now? So I pass out and take a nap. And I wake up and I'm actually feeling pretty good. And I look at him and I said, that was the best 4-hour nap I've ever had. And he said, I don't know what you're talking about. We got home at 5 and it's now 6:30. You want me to make you dinner? I was like, sure, okay. Still kind of loopy. So he boiled me some eggs and made me sweet potatoes, which was heaven. And we're sitting there eating and people are texting me and I'm texting back, but it was kind of like drunk texting. Like I was aware, but not fully into it. But I would, my friends were like, are you okay? Our family, are you okay? Yes, 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 I'm great. So we're eating dinner and I look down and I'm like, my shirt is on backwards. So I turn my shirt around and I die laughing because my name tag, I realize, I look down and my name tag is still there, which means that I got dressed and got wheeled out of the hospital and was just talking my head off with like my name tag on my back the whole time. And no one corrected me at all. It was like, you might want to put your shirt on properly. So I was laughing and laughing. Now, the other thing I pre-gamed with, because I've had so many friends who've had this surgery, were these incredible high-waisted compression underwear that they're very slimming, which was a side bonus. I now wear them under my formal outfits, but B, the compression feels incredibly good. So I had 4 incisions. I had one right above my pubic hair, very low down. I had 2 incisions on either side of my belly button, like where the ovaries are, about 3 inches east and west of my belly button. And then they went in my belly button. They did not go in vaginally. So it's this incredible surgery where the invasiveness is quite minimal. So there was just little pieces of surgical tape. There was really not a lot of bandages or anything. And they said, just wait for the tape to fall off on its own, and then you just leave things alone. So I have these awesome compression underwear. And when I was lying down, I was fine. When I stood up, so I started going on walks. I didn't do it the night I got home, but the next day I started doing walks immediately. Now, my walks were 5 minutes at a time. The first walk was just a lap around my front hallway. And then the walk started 5 minutes, a couple times a day, and just getting circulation, getting elevated. It was not as tiring as I thought. I would nap maybe once a day. I was resting, but I made sure that I was up, that I was about, that I was moving. And because I pre-gamed, it was pretty incredible. I wasn't overly bloated. I actually ended up losing a good 5 pounds. And I realized how inflamed I was. I couldn't believe it. I was like, damn, I had a lot of inflammation in there. So what did I have? I had adenomyosis, which is a sister to endometriosis. So I had asked Dr. Kolev to take pictures during the surgery. And man, my uterus was red, angry. It was pissed off. And so, and I did have a little bit of a pooch below my belly button. Prior to surgery, that's now gone. So it's really incredulous. And I look back on the video footage of me when I was at the height of perimenopause, when I was having all the cramps, when I was having inflammation. And I see how now it was like I was able to put the pieces together. And I was like, of course I was bloated. Of course I struggled with weight gain. of course, I was inflamed. I had so much inflammation in my body that instantly got removed. So I was incredibly grateful to the staff at Yale. I was so grateful to Dr. Fensky for guiding me there. So I was incredibly fortunate to have had a great team taking care of me. And I was saying to Jeremy, every woman deserves to have this incredible experience. Every woman should be held and guided and given the wherewithal and have friends to talk to about it and have the knowledge and wherewithal and the tools to be able to get through this, held and guided through the whole thing. And so, I had my college bestie came and stayed with me for a few days. She had had a hysterectomy. She was cut hip to hip and had a much harder recovery. And she was looking at me and she said, "My God, I wish I had your experience where it was less invasive," because I would go out for walks. I would say, "Hey, you want to join me for a walk?" And she was like perfectly content to sit and do puzzles. But I was up and walking. And within 2 weeks, I probably overdid it. I was back up to 6 miles a day. And then I was like, oh my God, like my left side was crying out in pain. So I cut back, I rested, and then built up. But now back to my usual basics. So, and the other thing is diet, right? There was no alcohol for a month or two before my surgery. And I did not drink for a good month or two after surgery. And again, I've probably had 3 drinks in total since my surgery. Like that's not true. I drank a couple on vacation. So maybe 5 drinks since my surgery over the course of a couple of months. So that's the thing is you've got to self-care. Protein is so, so, so important. I worked in hospitals for years. Post-operatively, you really jack up your protein. So I made sure to eat a ton of protein. I made sure to get my fiber in too, because after you have an abdominal surgery, you don't want to be constipated. Oh, this is the other pro tip I need to tell you all. I pre-gamed with Gas-X. Now I asked Dr. Kolev, "Hey, is Gas-X going to help me?" Now, why are you thinking, Esther, you're crazy? Like, why would you take Gas-X? Because when you have the surgery, your abdomen is inflated with air. This is how the surgical team can get in and explore and see things clearly. Your organs in your abdominal cavity are really close together, sometimes on top of each other, sometimes stuck together if there's bad endometriosis. So, and your bladder, my fibroids were pressing on my bladder. So the team is going to expand your abdomen with air. Well, what happens post-operatively? That air gets trapped in your shoulders after the surgery. And I know this because I knew, again, I had so many people, my friends were like, "Oh, my hairdresser had that. She took Gas-X. It stopped. She didn't have any of the shoulder pain." Other friends were like, "Yes, I didn't take Gas-X. I had shoulder pain for 2 days after. It was awful." So I ignored Dr. Kolev and was like going to trust girlfriends who'd been through it more than anything else. I took Gas-X and I took simethicone, which is, it's like a laxative. Or maybe simethicone is Gas-X, pardon me. And then I took laxatives just to make sure I was not straining. So it's really important that you poop after surgery. So you're detoxing all the anesthesia. But B, you can't strain when you poop or pee. So you do what I like to call toilet yoga. So like if you're watching this on YouTube, when you go to urinate, you can really lean back and forth, move your torso towards your knee and back and really expand your rib cage and breathe. And the other thing is you can pretend you're blowing through a trumpet. When it comes time to poo, you blow air out while your lower abdomen gets pulled in towards your belly button naturally. And that instead of straining and getting hemorrhoids, you use your abdominal muscles. A, it's a great way to re-engage them. And B, it's a great way to make sure that you're not straining, because that is horrible for your pelvic floor, and you can also get hemorrhoids. So the other way I really helped my recovery, and still am working on it, because when your abdominal muscles are cut into, you're going to lose some strength, was Pilates and bar. So I have an incredible soul sister, Benet, who comes to my house. She's going to be on the podcast. She's like my magician. So she came to the house. She did a lot of gentle stretching and very gentle re-engaging of the core muscles. And she still, you can't lift weights, but she still had me do upper body exercises just without weights, but just re-engaging the muscle. And the way she works me, she gets me to really isolate muscle. So even without weights, I was still able to work my upper body. And then lower body, she had my feet, she had me lie on my back with my knees up and my feet on the floor, and just gentle. My feet were on like a furniture slider, and you're just moving your feet back and forth. She had me do just very gentle stretches, and she stretched my back a lot. My back got very tight because, everything's reoriented, and my back was trying to hold, my abs were weak. So my back was trying to carry all of that. So I did all of that for the first 6 weeks. I took anti-inflammatories for a good 8 weeks, and then really felt pretty incredible. So now, and I went and had my follow-up, and they were like, you're healing incredibly fast and incredibly well. So all this is possible for you. Do not be afraid. If you need to have a hysterectomy, make sure you find a really good team. Make sure it's out of, hopefully insurance covers it. For me, this was a $46,000 surgery that I paid out of pocket $1,500. And I joked to Jeremy, I said, well, I just found out what my uterus is worth. It's worth $1,500. And he said, well, it is used. What do you expect? So try to get shit covered as much as you can. Ask a lot of questions. If your surgeon's dismissive, if you do not have a good gut feeling, if you go online and read bad reviews, listen to yourself. This is your body, and some stranger who doesn't really know you is going to be cutting into it. So into your body. So pay attention to bedside manner. Pay attention to the fellows who are examining you. Pay attention to their professionalism, their kindness, their office organization. All of those things really matter, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. So feel free to DM me on Instagram, ask questions. I will be doing more solo episodes to answer your Q&As. You can also go to my website, estherblum.com, click on podcast, the podcast tab, and you will be led to my podcast page where you can submit questions through my website as well that I will see. I read all of these, and I'm happy to answer your questions. So as 2025 draws to a close, I just want to say I'm so grateful for all of you who are downloading this, who are following/subscribing. I would be so honored if you would leave a review for me. It would really help other women like you find this podcast. Now, in 2026, I am rebuilding many of my coaching programs, very new and exciting ways to work with you and support you in a way that is time efficient, powerful, gives you access to blood, Dutch, and GI map and one-to-one meetings with me if you wish. So be sure to follow me at estherblum.com. Get on my mailing list. I'm going to reach out to you with a lot of information about what's possible for you. And I just wish you the healthiest and happiest year with incredible joy coming your way.
If you loved this episode, follow or subscribe to the Midlife Realignment wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube, and leave a review to help other women find this show.